Hey guys, it's Zach from the Concon channel, and in this video I'm going to give you some tips and tricks for the Empire of the Ants game. Now, one of the first tips that I have for you is if you interact with your nest and you go to the economy, you want to always build either a woodyard which produces 10 wood per minute or a mushroom farm which produces 10 food per minute. Now, you can't have both of them in the same nest, so it's important to alternate between the two per nest. As you can see in this mission, we have quite a few nests, so I'm going to pretty much do a 50-50 split between the two resources of a woodyard and a mushroom farm. Now, the next tip that I have for you is to check out your map and see what resources are available and nearby. And this is important because the next tip is to build a workers unit. And the reason for this is because you want to go to a nest that is close to a resource deposit, so such as this food right over here, and we are building the workers right here. So once the workers are done being built, I will then assign them to collect the food from this pair and bring it back to the nest. And the reason I chose this nest is because it is the shortest distance from the resource deposit to the actual nest, so therefore they will travel a lot faster between the nest and the food, therefore bringing in a lot more food a lot quicker. So the next tip when using or building your legions is you don't want to build the highest tier legion so quickly. As you can see, we have tier 3 available, but the reason you don't want to do tier 3 immediately is because if you do tier 3, it's going to take more resources from you and you're not going to be able to produce as many units. So you want to start off at tier 1 for each of the units, especially in a mission like this where there is a timer, because we don't have time to wait for the units to be built and we don't have enough time to pretty much get the resources for every minute that we go through this mission. And another tip that I have is it's always useful to build each different type of unit, as specific units are better against other units. For example, if I'm not mistaken, the warrior unit, which is the larger ants, are good against the workers, and the gunners are good against the warriors, and so on. Like, it'll explain to you at the beginning of the game, but there's pretty much a use for each of the units for the different enemies that you're going to be facing. Now, another tip that I have for you is you always want to focus on the mission objective, as not all missions actually require you to defeat enemies, but for example, this mission requires us to gather materials. So because we know that is the case, we want to actually focus on building these worker units so that they can collect the materials for us to actually complete the mission. Another important tip that I have for you is the pheromones, which is the powers you get in this game. Now, the pheromones are super useful and you should always use them as much as you can. For example, my favorite one is the rage pheromones, which induces Fury to increase legion damage output by 30% for 30 seconds. Now, this one's quite helpful as it defeats the enemies really quickly, and it just gets the mission done really fast, especially if you need to defeat enemies or destroy nests. Now, the different tiers of the powers just increases the original tier 1 power to a higher level. So the rage pheromones increase by 30% in tier 1, and in tier 3 it increases by 70%. Like I said, you don't want to go all out with the resource upgrade, so you always want to start on tier 1. And you'll see that these worker ants are busy fighting. Now, if we use our rage pheromones, it's actually going to help take out the enemy a lot faster. As you can see, their health bar is crashing down, and it's just going to help us get rid of them a lot faster. Now, another tip that I have is to create a wood barrier and some defenses for your nest HQ, and you'll know which one your nest HQ is. It has the crown above it. Now, this is important because if your nest HQ goes down, then you will lose the fight. So that is another tip that I have for you guys. Now, another tip that I have for you is unlocking higher tier upgrades. As you can see in the top right, we are currently tier 1 out of tier 3. And the reason for this is that if we look at the tier 2 of our other upgrades, it says we require a higher technological tier. Now, in order to get this higher technological tier, to get tier 2, we need to craft the chemical laboratory. Now, the game would have explained this to you at the beginning, but it can be a bit confusing and you may forget about it, so I'm just reminding you. So if you upgrade the chemical laboratory in the economy section, you'll then unlock tier 2 of your upgrades. So you'll see that now that we've crafted the chemical laboratory, we've unlocked tier 2, and it's no longer restricting us by saying we need a higher technological tier. Now, in order to get tier 3, it's going to then say again that we require a higher technological tier. So you can see that for all the other upgrades, such as the information, if we go to powers, it'll also say we need a higher technological tier and even for the economy. Now, in order to get tier 3, we need to get the chemical library, which costs 120 food and 120 wood. And now once we've crafted the chemical library, we can now have access to all the tier 3 upgrades. As you can see, we can now get the counter spies and these upgrades. And you'll see even in the thing, it no longer says that we need higher technological tier, we just need more resources. Now, another tip that I have for you guys is to use the information section, as it can be very helpful. For example, in this mission, we pretty much start off with the bare minimum, so it's important that we get the cartographers, as it will actually allow us to get a minimap. As you can see, once we've crafted the cartographers, we now have a minimap that will help us explore the entire map. Now, the next tip that I have for you is to always try and upgrade or create the super predator. Now, these super predators are essentially like tanks. They soak up all the damage and they deal a decent amount of damage, but they are very helpful in leading the charge against enemies, and they are the fastest legion type in the game that I currently know of. Another really useful information upgrade is the Infiltrators. Now, this will display enemy legions and nest positions in the opponent's controlled regions. Now, this is very important because in this game, enemies will only attack from the regions they control. So, for example, you'll see that we have a purple region, a yellow region, and the red region. Now, the red region is in full control of the enemy, the yellow is partially controlled, and the purple is fully controlled by us. Now, in the yellow section, we are more likely to get attacked from the red direction than from the purple direction, as that is where the enemies are. So it is very important that if you have not gained full control of the region, to add defenses around that region. So for example, this nest that we have here closest to the red region, we are going to add a defensive barrier because this is most likely where we are going to get attacked from. But for example, if we randomly get attacked on the right, then I would need defenses there so that it can buy me some time. As you can see right now, we are getting attacked on that side, as I was saying, and I have no defenses there. But if we had defenses there, it would buy us some time to actually get our troops over there without losing that nest. So in this case, we might lose that nest. But that is the perfect example of what I was saying. You need to build defenses in the regions or on the nests in regions that are partially controlled by the enemy or fully controlled by the enemy. So now you know, whichever nest is closest to the region that is being controlled to the enemies, you want to build defenses for it. The next tip that I have for you guys is to manage your chambers. What chambers are is those squares beneath the title of your nest. For example, the up your headquarters, you can see all those blocks, the two reds and the orangey looking blocks. Those are chambers. Chambers are essentially how many upgrades you can have per nest. So if we take a look at this nest, we only have about 3, 6, 7 chambers and they are all full, which means we cannot do any more upgrades on this nest. So you always need to be managing your chambers, as some upgrades can only be done on one nest. For example, let's say we built the dash pheromone, which is over here on this particular nest, and we built the tier 1. If we want to upgrade it to tier 2 or tier 3, we have to do that same upgrade in this nest. But if we don't have enough chambers, as you can see, tier 2 requires 2 chambers and so does tier 3. If we do not have enough chambers and it is not the same nest, we will not be able to craft it. And that is why it is very important to manage the chambers and the upgrades you do to your specific nests. For example, you want to make sure that if you are creating specific nests, you want to cater that nest to a specific type of build. For example, my uphill headquarters is focusing on the economy section. If we take a look at our dandelion nest, it is focusing more on the information section. So you kind of want to build your nest based off of the different upgrades you're doing. You pretty much only need to do this for the information and the economy section, because obviously the rest of them are just upgrades that don't require any chambers. For example, the veteran workers, because I've built them on this nest, they are not going to require any chambers to upgrade. Whereas if you take a look here, it's going to cost 3 chambers just to have this superior predator, or 2 chambers to have this melee unit, and so on and so on. It's been Zach from the Concon channel. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.